people's safety. The Prime Minister says the government will do all it can to help.
Together, we're making sure that the resources are there to ensure that what is needed to keep people safe is being done.
Well, some refuse to be moved, and they now say they'll be forced to leave, according to the council, and they could be out of their homes for as long as 4 weeks.
Now I'm being told they can't rehouse me because I've got a dog. What do they want me to do with my dog? Put my dog to sleep?
We're live here throughout the day amid chaotic scenes and confusion over where everyone will be housed. Well, a very good afternoon to you. We are live here in Swiss Cottage in North London. I'm here at the Leisure Centre where residents from the nearby Chalcots estate have spent the night after being told to leave their homes over safety fears following the fire at Grenfell Tower, just a few miles away from here. Thousands of people live on this estate. The local council has said that 83 households have chosen to stay, but they will now be forced to leave. And it's not just here. The government has confirmed today that 27 tower blocks in 15 local authority areas across England have failed the cladding fire tests commissioned in the wake of the Grenfell disaster. Well, the affected towers here are on the Adelaide Road in the Swiss Cottage area of North London. At 8 p.m. last night, Camden Council announced the evacuation of Taplow, a 23-storey tower. Residents of Burnham, Bray and Dorney Towers are also to leave their homes later on in the evening. A fifth tower, Blashford House, was initially evacuated too, but the council later said that residents of that building could return home. Well, in the past half an hour, the London Fire Brigade has issued a statement, and they said there were concerns at the estate in addition to the cladding. Now, I just want to read you a bit of this statement. They say that London Fire Brigade inspecting officers identified concerns relating to services that have been run through compartment walls, leading to possible breaches in the building's ability to stop fire spreading. And then they go on to say there were also concerns that some fire doors in the building aren't working as they should do, and that means that the event of a fire, it could spread to other parts of the building. The leader of Camden Council, Georgia Gould, explained to my colleague Stephen Dixon why people were told to evacuate so late in the day, and she's also responded to those complaints from residents about the way the situation was handled.
Yeah, look, we had a conversation with the fire services at 5 p.m. yesterday, and they said the blocks weren't safe to stay in. I said that it's going to be so difficult to move residents overnight on a Friday. Is there anything I can do to make these blocks safe? You know, I offered to pay for fire engines outside all of the blocks. We've already had 24/7 wardens. We were prepared to do anything we could to keep people there while we did the immediate works. Their advice was there was nothing we could do to keep them safe. So we had a huge effort, you know, with 1 hour's notice. We've had 650 households have moved out. We've had everyone come together, Camden staff, volunteers. Of course there have been difficulties, of course it's distressing, but I think, you know, people, those 650 households are now in different accommodation.
So where are people now? I mean, is it a case of getting them into hotels for a couple of nights and then seeing where you go from there?
So many people have chosen to go with friends and family, and obviously we're encouraging that, but those who can't or don't want to, we've taken them to the 2 rest centres. We've had about 100 people staying in the rest centres. We've had some people in hotels, just as a temporary measure, about 270 hotel rooms booked. But obviously we want to get people into more secure accommodation over the next couple of weeks, and our message to individuals is to come back to this Swiss Cottage Centre to register their details, and we will support them into that temporary accommodation.
But what are the options there? I mean, can you keep people locally? Is it that people are going to have to be spread across London?
Yeah, so we've been building new social housing, and one of our blocks we've expedited getting that open, so that's 100 places in Camden. We've got different properties that aren't currently occupied that we're going to be asking to go into, but obviously we've asked other neighbouring boroughs as well whether they can provide extra support. So we're calling in as much help as we can and to get people housed safely.
So as you heard there, people very frustrated, and thousands of people have now been evacuated from their homes. In the last hour or so, the Prime Minister has given her reaction, her response. Here's what she had to say.
We are seeing, as a result of what happened in the terrible fire that took place at Grenfell Tower in Kensington, we have urged local authorities to send in samples of cladding and materials on their tower blocks. These have been tested. Many of those have been found not to be up to the fire safety standards that are required, and that is why action has been taken. Now, in some cases, it's possible to take mitigating action, and the fire service are content that the blocks are safe. In others, it's been necessary for people to move out on a temporary basis, and that's what happened in Camden last night. But for those Camden blocks, it wasn't just a question of the cladding. There were a number of issues that came together that meant that the fire service were concerned about those blocks, and the action was taken by the local authority. It's government that has been working with local authorities to ensure that they are inspecting their tower blocks. We have made facilities available for the cladding on the tower blocks where they're concerned about this to be sent in, to be tested, and when those tests find that that cladding is not up to the fire safety standards, immediate action is taken. The government, working with local authorities, working with the fire and rescue service, deciding what to do on each individual case to ensure the safety of people living in those homes. Absolutely, our first priority is people's safety. What needs to happen is the government is talking with Camden Council about how long it will take to ensure that these blocks are able to be safe for people to return to their flats. They're able to go into their flats and pick up belongings that they may wish to gather. People will have taken different steps in terms of where they will have been last night. Some were placed in hotel rooms. We're making sure that the authority has the ability to do what is necessary to ensure that people have somewhere to stay, and that the work is done so that those tower blocks will become safe for them to return to in the future.
So let's get reaction on that from Sky's Charlotte Lomas, who is in Westminster for us. And Charlotte, this is all turning into a bit of a political nightmare, isn't it?
Yes, well, we heard then the Prime Minister Theresa May seeking to reassure communities that the government is taking all the necessary steps to provide support and help to the local authorities to deal with this situation, really emphasising that all the actions being taken are in the interests of safety. But there are still a lot of questions, big questions, that are remaining. We now know that there are 27 high-rise buildings across 15 local authority areas which have failed the cladding fire safety tests. So will we be seeing more evacuations? Will the money that the government has put aside to deal with this be enough? And how will the residents be supported in the weeks to come? We have heard earlier on Sky News from the Community Secretary Saju David, who did again make reassurances and say that all the actions being taken, particularly in regards to the evacuation in Camden, while it's difficult and distressing, has been the right thing to do.
These are multiple fire safety check failures. These are things that, the failures in the internal building that have nothing to do with the cladding, such as fire doors not being there, auto door closers not being there or having been disenabled. You even had with these towers situations where some of the internal walls were breached. So this kind of issue shouldn't be happening. And as a result, though, right here and now, the most immediate action that needs to happen was that these residents need to be made safe.
I would hope that the local authority is taking all of these issues seriously, because there are people with medical needs that looking after, there are people with children, families that need looking after, people with disabilities. And I would hope that as part of that emergency planning, local authorities very carefully consider how they treat people if they are going to evacuate their homes, because people can't be left with uncertainty. They need to be given that certainty, and they need to be given the security of a roof over their heads, albeit temporarily.
Andrew Gwynn there, the Shadow Community Secretary. Now, this is a rapidly developing situation, one that is becoming, or seeming to become, ever more serious. And in light of that widespread criticism of Theresa May and her government in the initial aftermath of the Grenfell Tower, there really is a lot of pressure on there, a lot of calls for a coordinated response and a quick response to what's developing now.
OK, Charlotte, thanks very much for that update there from Westminster. Now, we are in Swiss Cottage today. You can see behind me, this is the leisure centre where many of these people have stayed overnight. There are makeshift blow up beds there. But lots of the residents, in fact, I've just had one come up to me now, say that the whole thing has been a complete shambles and they are very frustrated. Here's what some of those people who were evacuated had to say.
The guy came and knocked at the door at 1 o'clock in the morning. And the old people, she's 79, my dad is 85. He cannot even carry himself. He's blind on one eye. The other one is 30% left. So he can barely see, he can barely walk. They're panicking because they don't know where to go. And they have not slept all night, so I don't know.
How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm all right. It's the same feeling, yeah, worried or something like that, yeah.
I'm only here on holiday for a week. I'm from Australia, but I'm worried for them. I'm really worried for them.
People have had to decide, in a few minutes, how all their possessions, what to do with them and what they might need, I don't know, for an indefinite period of time.
Obviously, this should have been done prior to installation, obviously. So, better safe than sorry, I suppose.
I don't know why I decided to have a look at the news because I couldn't go back to sleep. And then I saw on the TV that we were being evacuated. And I thought, is this a joke? Is this for real? I didn't hear anything. No neighbors touching, no letters from the council, nothing. So this morning I'm trying to find out. I'm going to the sports centre. They tell you 2 to 4 weeks. I spoke to somebody from the council on Thursday because she was handing in letters saying that everything was fine. They discovered something that could be potentially dangerous, and in the following weeks they will have a look at it, but it will all be fine. So I thought that's fine. And then today this is what's happening.
We just now got to go down there now to see what's going on. So we've got nowhere to go. We don't know. We've been told that they're sending people to Hackney, all over the place, people in hotels, but I don't know, nothing. No one's really told us what's going on.
So, reaction from some very frustrated residents there. I'm joined now by Oliver Morodov. He's a volunteer who's helping people to find accommodation. Thanks very much for joining me. Right. People must be in such desperate situations.
Well, yeah, of course, there's hundreds of people that need to be accommodated. I woke up this morning to the news. I run an accommodation booking agency, contractor accommodation services. I'm born and bred in the borough of Camden. I know the area very well, and came down here to see what I can do, what my team can do to try and help house and accommodate these poor families who have literally, most of them have been forced to sleep on a basketball court. Some were housed in hotels locally, but there are still, from what I've been told, hundreds of people that still need accommodation from tonight.
What's it like in there? I mean, I've seen...
Well, this morning I arrived here at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it was absolute pandemonium, which is expected. It's now, I think people have filled in their forms, they're on the system, and now they've been told to go away, keep their phones at the ready, so that they can be matched with suitable accommodation options that the council, or indeed us, can find locally.
And what kind of places are you trying to find?
Well, I know that the council have been looking at local hotels on Euston Road and Old Street, local areas where we actually focus on self-catering. These guys have been thrown out of their homes. What we want to try and find is a home away from home. And we've been able to find 25 apartments, which my phone might actually start ringing now, in which case I will take the call, which would house at least 50 of the people from tonight for the provisional 2 weeks that they need, but it would be available to them for however long the council needs it for.
But there are thousands of people, aren't there? And we've seen now actually donations are starting to be left here.
There are donations.
How is this community, getting together?
I can't comment on how the community... I know that things have been sent by the local community. I know that there's been food and water sent by locals.
But you get that feeling, don't you, that people are coming here to help?
People are absolutely coming together to try and help. The council isn't geared towards this. I think that's the issue that they find. I think they're now finding their feet. And people like myself have try and come to see if we can help in any way possible. I think the problem that, with it being the council, there's a lot of bureaucracy that needs to be dealt with initially. So as opposed to saying, there's this accommodation available from tonight, do you want it or not? They're not able to make that decision because they're waiting for certain things to be signed off. That's the frustration from my end, because potentially from tomorrow I could have housed another 100 people in accommodation, but it's the process of getting the council to agree to that spend to make sure that the places that I've got are suitable for their council tenants, that's taking time.
And Are you getting the impression from people that they feel that this has been handled in, a very disorganised manner?
Well, I think that it is shambolic, but that's only because it's been sprung on them at very, very short notice. I think the council are doing the best that they can, and I'm not a council person. I have no reason to try and defend them. I think they are dealing with it. I think a lot of people were put into hotels from last night. What more can they really want? It's something, obviously, that they've been put in this situation against their will. It's for their own safety. Most of the people have been housed, which is a good thing, but I think the most important thing is they need to be housed in residential accommodation, not in just hotels. And I've heard people are in hotels in Streatham, which is too far. I've got accommodation options from tomorrow for 100 people that's in West London. That's apparently too far. I would jump at the opportunity to stay in what I can find, a 4-star service apartments, basically.
And you are a local guy.
Yeah.
When you saw what happened at Grenfell Tower, absolutely horrendous scenes. Your reaction?
Yeah, absolutely horrendous. It needs to be dealt with. I've been loitering around here, hearing all the councillors talking, all the residents and associations claiming that the cladding and the pipes and I'm sure you've interviewed a lot of people, that apparently these it's not only the cladding on these buildings that's an issue. It goes deeper within the buildings in terms of the fire safety. So I think there's going to have to be a lot of work done on these buildings. So unfortunately, whilst the council are agreeing to a provisional 14 days for these guys in accommodation, I think it's going to be 6 or 8 weeks at the least before anyone knows.
We've seen some people down here with their suitcases wandering around, nowhere to go.
No, and that's what I'm here to try and help. As I mentioned, it has to follow a particular process. You have people in the leisure centre that are taking the requirements, and you have people that are in King's Cross dealing with the suppliers. So there is obviously a process in place. Unfortunately, that process might be taking longer than the tenants wanted to take. But it's it's the situation they find themselves in.
Well, thanks very much for sharing your story with us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hopefully some of those people will get accommodation. As you know, we are here at the leisure centre. This is where many people have been staying overnight on makeshift beds put up by the council, but lots are saying that they are frustrated. And of course, this isn't just an issue here in Camden, but we're hearing that many tower blocks up and down the country have issues with this particular cladding, and there has been tests following the Grenfell fire. But of course, you are watching Sky News, and we will have plenty more coming up on all of that after the break.
We've never seen a whale here before. This is unusual.
A dying whale mysteriously appears in a remote Norwegian cove.
Clogged up with items of plastic.
En masse plastik.
Full of plast.
The grim reality of a whale's stomach reveals the alarming scale of plastic in our oceans.
Because this whale was almost a messenger from the deep.
If we don't do something with this problem now, it will kill us.
Sky's Ocean Rescue Campaign presents A Plastic Whale, tonight at 9 on Sky News.
Hi. Have you booked? No? Excellent. Follow me.
Pump the gym, pump it up. When your feet are stomping, and the gym is pumping. Look ahead, the crowd is jumping. A place to stay. Get your booty on the floor tonight.
If Carlsberg did haircuts, they would probably be the best in the world.
The word free may have lost its power, but not at Air. Sign up to Air's high-speed broadband and mobile bundle for €70 a month for 12 months and €115 a month thereafter, and get a lot for free. A free 4G mobile plan with unlimited data, calls and texts for a whole year, and a free iPhone SE. Plus free Air Sport and BT Sport. Yes, we made free epic again. Get Ireland's favourite broadband and so much more. Call 1-800-500-300 or visit air.ie.
Fire up your imagination, as well as your barbecue. M&S, spend it well.
How do you make a difference? Hybrid was 20 years ahead of its time.
and few believed. Now millions of Toyota hybrids burn less fuel and deliver cleaner air, so everyone benefits. And while the rest race to catch up, we race ahead to a future where harmful emissions could be a thing of the past. For our children's children. Toyota. Built for a better world.
Welcome back, you're watching Sky News. Just want to bring you a bit of breaking news, and the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn has released a statement on the situation here in Camden and this evacuation, and he has said, my thoughts with all the residents affected by the evacuation of tower blocks in Camden. This is a disruptive and worrying time for them, and he goes on to say the council has taken a very difficult decision on the advice of fire safety experts, but the safety of residents must always come first. Now, of course, it's not just here in Camden where councils are urgently trying to ensure people living in high-rise blocks are safe following the fire at Grenfell Tower. Up and down the country, we've seen many tower blocks that have issues with their cladding. Now, one area affected is Plymouth. 3 blocks there are having their cladding removed. I went there yesterday to find out what residents are feeling.
So I love the views, but I'm just not safe at all. And it's lovely living here, but when you don't feel safe, you know, it's a massive worry.
Up on the 13th floor, Kristen Neal lives alone and says she no longer feels safe. The cladding on her tower block will be removed because tests have shown that it's combustible. So what is it that you are mostly worried about then?
I'm worried about the fact that this door is just not
And is that here, is it?
Yeah, when the door's shut, you can feel the air coming in, so if there was a fire, the smoke would just come right in.
Kristen says she feels like she's living in a death trap.
I want this block of flat to be safe. You know, I want a fire door. I don't think it's a lot to ask to have a fire door, you know, and I feel like they're kind of saying, yeah, that's priority, we'll get it done, but I've had nothing.
From the top floor, it takes 3 minutes to walk to the bottom at a normal pace. But the concrete steps are narrow, and for the elderly and those with disabilities, escaping a fire from so high up will be incredibly difficult.
Well, the government is...
Yeah. And that's a reality for Claudine Palmer, who lives on the top floor and has asthma.
If it happened in here, you know, I'm up on the 15th floor. How'd you get out? How'd you know?
Have you thought about that? How would you get out?
No. You'd have to stay in a flat, wouldn't you? You'd have to stay here and... Couldn't jump, could I?
Today, workmen were boarding up windows in the blocks, and there's now 24-hour security. They're run by a housing association, but when they were first clad, they were council-owned. Those cladding panels went up years and years ago. Why was there not more research done into the fact that they could be combustible?
I have absolutely no evidence to suggest that anything other than the correct process and procedure was followed when those cladding panels were affixed.
But you've now tested them, and they are combustible.
I agree, but you know, I can only talk about the situation as it existed.
There has been a fire in the block behind me before, and some residents say they had to crawl out on their hands and knees. And whilst the majority of people say they are worried about safety, some people who've spent their lives living here don't want to be rehoused. High-rise buildings have for decades been a feature of many city landscapes, but since the Grenfell fire tragedy, local authorities are taking every precaution to ensure that they're safe. Well, you're watching Sky News. Let's get a check on the sport now.